We continue now at the top of Daf Tes Vav Amud Aleph in Maseches Nedarim. This is Nedarim Daf 15a. On the previous summit, Rav Yehuda was concerned. Let's say a person says a konim that I'm not going to sleep today if I sleep tomorrow. So Rav Yehuda says the person should make sure not to sleep today because we're afraid maybe he will sleep tomorrow and it really will be a neder. But the Gemara says that that's only true if the konim was today. But let's say he said, if I sleep today, so then a konim that I'm not going to sleep tomorrow, so then already we're not concerned about what's going to be the next day, because then the konim, the actual neder, is the next day. And as the Gemara here explains, kilo mizdoher b'tanar, Rav Yehuda is only concerned that the person's not going to be careful about the next day if that was the condition. If it was, if I don't sleep tomorrow, or if I sleep tomorrow rather, then there's going to be a konim today, then Rav Yehuda is concerned tomorrow the person might not fulfill the condition. Alval b'isura mizdar, but when the actual Isser is tomorrow, and the condition is today, so then Rav Yehuda is not worried because certainly the person will be careful tomorrow. If the person does not fulfill the condition today, the person will make sure not to sleep tomorrow because that already is an Isser. That's the actual konim. That was Rav Yehuda's opinion. And so the Gemara now continues to Nan. We learned in our Mishnah, going to try to prove whether the Mishnah can be a proof one way or the other in terms of Rav Yehuda's chumrah. So the Mishnah said, konim shani yoshin, shani mahalech, shani medaber v'chulu. Said in the Mishnah that if a person says a konim that he's not going to sleep, he's not going to walk, he's not going to talk, all of those are going to be effective nedarim, and he won't be allowed to sleep, won't be allowed to walk, won't be allowed to speak, etc. The Gemara says, Hechi dami. What exactly is the case in the Mishnah? If you're going to say that the case in the Mishnah is the way it seems to be written, Shani Yoshin, he says a konim that he's not going to sleep. So me have an idra, would that even be a neder? You can't make a neder not to sleep because a neder has to go on something substantial. Vatnan, but we learned in the Mishnah, and they changed this to V'hatanya, we learned in a Brisa. Chomer b'shavuos, there's a stringency by shavuos, by oaths, shehas shavuos cholos al davar sheyesh bo mamish, ve'al davar she'ein bo mamish, because a shavua can be chal on something that has substance, and also on something that does not have substance. Masha'ein kain b'nedarim. That's not true by nedarim. A neder cannot be chal on something that has no substance. V'shein adavar shein bo mamishu, and sleep is something that has no substance. So it can't possibly be that a person can make a neder on sleep. Sleep is something that is not substantial. So the Gemara says, Ella rather, it must be do'amar konim einai b'sheina. He's saying a konim on his eyes in terms of sleep. The eyes do have substance, and that's obviously the nature of the konim. But the Gemara says one second further. But if there was no amount of time, if he just says, I'm not going to sleep forever, so mishav kinan le'ad do'avar isser bal yachil, do you think we're going to allow him? It's impossible for a person not to sleep forever. Do you think we're going to allow him to have this neder be in effect until he definitely will transgress the isser bal yachil? That's not even true. V'yomer Rabbi Yochanan, but Rabbi Yochanan said, shavua shalo ishan shalosha yamim. Let's say a person takes a shvua that he's not going to sleep for 3 days, a shvua that I'm not going to sleep for 3 days. Malkin, so we give him Malchus right away. That's because of it's a shvu in this case. He said the name of Hashem in vain. V'yosh, he said an oath that was in vain. V'yoshen la'alter, and then he should sleep immediately. Meaning it's not really going to be chal. Such a shvu is not chal. He gets Malchus because it was a shvu in vain. And the same thing is true by a neder. A person takes a neder, a konim on his eyes, never to sleep. That's not going to even take effect. So that cannot be the case. So Ella, rather, it must be. To Amar konim einai b'sheina l'machar, he's saying a konim on my eyes from sleeping tomorrow, meaning I'm not going to sleep tomorrow. Imishin hayom, if I sleep today. He's saying if I sleep today, then I won't sleep tomorrow. And so if that's the case, so Amrit Kol, and if that's the case, so then what the Mishnah is saying is that it is effective, and that we're actually concerned he shouldn't sleep today because we're afraid maybe tomorrow he's going to sleep. But that's not true either, Amrit, but we said, Kol Bisurei Mizdar, that when there's an Isser, a person will be careful. So in such a situation, a person says, Konim tomorrow, if I sleep today, we would let him sleep today, because we know he's going to keep the Konim tomorrow, because that's the Isser, even Rabbi Yehuda agrees to that. Elab Shita, rather, it is obvious the case must be as follows. The Amar Konim einai b'sheina hayom. He's saying a konim today, he's not going to sleep. Imishan l'machar, if he sleeps tomorrow, he won't sleep today. And so therefore, what's happening over here? V'ilo nayim hayom ki nayim l'machar my bal yachil devaro ika. So if he did not sleep today, in other words, what's the case of the Mishnah? Because the phrasing of the Mishnah was that there is bal yachil. In such a situation, he's going to have bal yachil, he's going to violate his word. But the problem is like this, if he didn't sleep today, let's say he made sure to stay awake today because he was concerned, so if that's the case, so then tomorrow he is allowed to sleep. If he sleeps tomorrow, what's the Bal Yachil? And so rather it must be Lav bin Anayim. The case over here is, again, he said, Konem Einai B'Sheina Hayom. He said, I'm not going to sleep today if I sleep tomorrow. And apparently the Mishnah said he could sleep today, because we're pretty certain he'll be able to keep the condition tomorrow. Alma Isid Anayim. You see that he may have slept. It's possible to sleep today, and we assume that he's going to fulfill the condition tomorrow. We're not concerned. And if he doesn't fulfill the condition tomorrow, if the next day he actually ends up going to sleep, and so now he slept on day 1 and he slept on day 2, and he didn't fulfill the condition, and now it's a violation of Bal Yachil, that must be the pshat in the Mishnah, Utiyuvta de Rav Yehuda, and that would be a refutation of Rav Yehuda. In other words, if you learn the Mishnah that the case is that the guy slept on day 1, and now really he has to fulfill the condition on day 2, and the Mishnah is saying if he doesn't fulfill the condition on day 2, that's going to be Bal Yachil, but that means he's sleeping on day 1. Rav Yehuda says he should never sleep on day 1, because Rav Yehuda says we're afraid he won't fulfill the condition. And so the Gemara answers, no, you can explain the Mishnah simply as follows, Ki kotoni di'inayim. What the Mishnah means to say is, if he slept on day 1, according to Rav Yehuda. According to Rav Yehuda, of course he shouldn't sleep on day 1, because we're afraid he won't fulfill the condition on day 2. It just means to say, if he slept on day 1, so then there's a possibility of Bal Yachil if he doesn't fulfill the condition the next day. And the Gemara continues with another answer. Ravina says, Liolam kidakatani, really learn the Mishnah exactly as it is written. Umay Bal Yachil, and what does the Mishnah mean when it says that on day number 1 there's Bal Yachil, when again really there shouldn't be Bal Yachil on day number 1, because maybe he'll fulfill the condition on day number 2. So the Gemara says, according to Rav Yehuda, very simple, Midrabanan, the Mishnah means exactly what Rav Yehuda was saying. On day number 1 there's Bal Yachil on a Dirabanan level, because there's a concern that maybe he won't fulfill the condition on day number 2, and that was exactly Rav Yehuda's opinion. And the Gemara says, Umi'ika Bal Yachil Midrabanan, is there really such a concept of Bal Yachil on a Dirabanan level? Is that what the Mishnah can be saying? And the Gemara says, yes, there is such a concept, Vatani, as we learned in a Brisa, Devarim hamutarin va'acherim noagu behen isser. Let's say you have something that technically is mutter, but there are people who are strict, and they conduct themselves as if it's prohibited. So iyata rashoy latiran bifneim. So you can't be matter in front of them, you can't be lenient in front of them if they are treating it as strict. Shenamar, like the pasuk says, lo yachel devaro. Again, the same idea that he shouldn't violate his word, so to speak. In other words, this chumrah that the person undertook, it's part of Bal Yachil. He has a commitment to be strict, and so Bal Yachil devaro, he has to be strict. And that Bal Yachil, of course, is not a deoraisa Bal Yachil, but it's a derabanan. And you see this idea that there's a derabanan concept of Bal Yachil. And the Gemara continues, Tanan, we learned in a Mishnah, Sha'at neneso li ara Pesach, im telchi leveis avich ara Chag. Let's say a husband says to his wife, he makes a condition, if you go to your father's house until Sukkot, so then you're not allowed to get benefit from me until Pesach. So in other words, he's trying to prevent his wife from going to her father's house, and the way he's preventing her is he's saying that if you're going to get any benefit from me at all until Pesach, which of course she will get benefit from him until Pesach time, so once that happens that she gets benefit, so now she's really not going to be allowed to go to her father's house, because there's a prohibition for her to get benefit if she goes to her father's house until Sukkot. And so the Mishnah says, Holcha lefnei Pesach. So now let's say she does go to her father's house, and let's say it's before Pesach right now. It's the time really where now the actual condition is going to kick in and say that she's not allowed to get benefit from him. So Asura b'hanaso ara Pesach. So now she does in fact become prohibited to get benefit from him, from her husband, until Pesach time. And so the Gemara now says again, Holcha lefnei Pesach Asura. So it sounds like if she goes before Pesach, so she violates the condition already before Pesach, so then she's Asur. But lo al chala, but apparently if she doesn't go, so then she's not forbidden to get benefit. In other words, we're not concerned that she's not going to fulfill the condition. We say if she gets benefit until Pesach, so then we assume she will fulfill the condition, and that seems to go against Rav Yehuda, because Rav Yehuda is always concerned that a person won't fulfill the condition. So over here in this Mishnah, there doesn't seem to be such a concern. It's a question on Rav Yehuda. And the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Abba says, Holcha lefnei Pesach Asura v'loka. No, what it means is as follows. If before Pesach she goes to her father's house, so already she's violated the condition, so now it's forbidden for her to get benefit, and if she does get benefit, it's going to be malchus. But lo halcha, but let's say she doesn't go to her father's house. So the way Rav Yehuda will understand is, so there still is a concern over here, and she's not allowed to get benefit from him because we're concerned she won't fulfill the condition. But asura bialma, but it's just an isser. It's not going to be malchus over here. It's just a prohibition because we're concerned maybe she will not fulfill the condition. And the Gemara continues, well, Ema Seifa. Let's look at the end of that Mishnah. It says, Achar HaPesach bebal yachil devoro. It says that after Pesach, let's say she goes after Pesachtim, so then it's an issue of bal yachil. And so the Gemara says, now 1 second. V'idelo isani lifnei Pesach. Now what does the Mishnah mean? If the case over here is that she didn't get benefit from him before Pesach, so mika bal yachil. Would there be bal yachil? Of course not. Obviously the Mishnah means she got benefit from him before Pesach, and now after Pesach she violates the condition by going to her father's house, and so that's what the Mishnah is saying. There's bal yachil. So apparently she did get benefit from before Pesach, and that again that goes against Rav Yehuda, who says you have to be strict and not get benefit before Pesach because of the concern that she won't fulfill the condition. Elapshida disani. Rather, it's obvious she did get benefit from him before Pesach. Alma misani. You see that she does derive benefit from him before Pesach, and again, it seems like not like Rav Yehuda. It seems like there's not a concern that she won't fulfill the condition, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Tesvav Amud Beis.